Welcome and thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast. If you have ever felt like you are juggling more balls than a circus performer, today's episode is for you. So in life, I personally juggle quite a few different balls, wearing a lot of different hats, however you want to frame that viewpoint. One of those hats, obviously, being a mom, another one running a business, but one of my hats is I'm a board-certified health and wellness coach. In a modern world like the one we're living in today, where we are constantly hustling and bustling, trying to keep up with the demands of our lives and the lives of our family members, all too often we're feeling incredibly overwhelmed, stressed out, and out of balance. While we have a lot of big goals, a lot of big dreams, visions, aspirations, it can be really tough to make progress when we're barely treading water. That's why today my goal is to help you find solutions that can help you find a better life balance. We'll be exploring practical tips and strategies that you can apply to your own life, no matter how hectic or challenging your life seems at the moment. So I encourage grab a piece of paper and a pen or open up the notes section of your phone and let's jump right in. Hi, I'm Jenna and I'm always rambling. Just ask my husband. I have a great family and a pretty cool life, but I'm a recovered alcoholic. That's hard to say, but my goal is to inspire and educate to help others hopefully find life beyond an addiction. I'm all things: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Getting healthy, momming, and politics. Get offended easily? You better stop listening. There is no point in wasting that Botox by stressing yourself out listening to a podcast. Welcome to Ramblings of an Addict with Jenna Dix. Today's episode brought to you by products and services that I'm thoroughly addicted to. Hey, Minnesota and Wisconsin pals, are you tired of overpaying for insurance? Meet Tucker Schlotman, the insurance broker who can save you money and put a smile on your face. How do I know? Because my husband and I got that same smile on ours after sending Tucker a quick text to run our numbers. I know Tucker personally, and he helped us save big bucks on our insurance. Tucker has years of experience serving Minnesota and Wisconsin families, and he knows how to find the right coverage you need at a price you can afford. As a new father himself, he knows how important this is for families. All you have to do is give him a call or shoot him a text, and he'll get the process started. So why wait? In a tough economy, we all could use a little extra cash in our pockets. Tucker Schlotman, your insurance partner for life and the guy who can save you money and make you smile. Be sure to check the show notes for more information so you can text him right now. Or if you know anyone who needs help with a new home or auto insurance policy or reshopping on their current policy, spread the love and introduce them to Tucker. Hey, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Obviously, if you've made it to this point, you are a person that you are just feeling like your life is a little uneven. Your balance is off. And sometimes, even if we're really succeeding in certain areas of our lives, if other areas are dragging us down and making us feel unbalanced, we can very easily feel like a failure, even though there's certain areas that we are like kicking ass in. So today's episode is definitely going to be a really good one for you if you have ever felt like that, and especially if you're feeling like that right now. I definitely encourage making sure you've gone into your podcast app. Make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast so you never miss when I download a new episode or upload a new episode rather. And if you have yet to, I would really encourage and love if you would rate and review the podcast. That definitely helps, with the algorithm. But end of the day, it gives me feedback too, to know, hey, am I hitting the mark? Am I giving you content that's helpful or content that you want more of, things of that sort. So make sure to do that action step if you have not yet done that. I would really appreciate that. So again, I am super thrilled to have you joining me on today's episode. This is an important topic that I think affects all of us. Balance is something that we are dealing with on the regular, especially in today's times where life is going so freaking fast. We have so much going on. And it is very easy to feel like, holy shit, my life is a disaster, even when it's really not. So, before we really dive in and get started, just to give you a little background, if you have yet to hear any of my previous podcasts where I gave the breakdown of, what my actual title is, career path-wise. But for those of you that don't know, I am a national board certified health and wellness coach, one of less than 10,000 in the country. And for me specifically, one of my biggest passions is working with people who are not afraid to put in a little bit of hard work, also understanding that it comes with a mixture of faith and hope in our good Lord as well. When I'm working with clients, I'm not the type that's going to really offer the woo type of health coaching, the more hippy-dippy, I guess, type of health coaching. I'm more like, you get down there in the mud, you work hard, you're not afraid to pour some blood, sweat, tears into things to improve your life. But at the same time, also understanding that you need to know self-grace is going to be a big part of it because, I've said this plenty of times, but God made no perfect humans other than his son. And if we don't have grace for ourselves, understanding that we're going to have moments of failure, understanding that we're going to have moments where we just can't keep up, we're going to beat ourselves up way more than we need to. So yes, we do have the ability to dive in, put in the hard work, but things sometimes will just fall flat because that is life. Okay. But that doesn't mean we can't give it our all and still hope, hey, I want life to turn out as freaking good as it possibly can. And I'm not afraid to do what I need to do to get there. So in my own life, I've definitely faced my fair share of challenges, some completely self-induced. I don't even deny that. Some of them, I was sitting in the corner playing with matches and then screaming, holy shit, a fire. Like I started them, right? I created that mess. And I had to lay in it and I had to figure it out and fight my way through. Others, weren't necessarily my fault, but I still had to figure my way out and fight for the life that I do have today. It's definitely still a far from perfect life, but I also do realize if I had not poured in the blood, sweat, and tears and had faith in the Lord to get me to where I'm at today, my life could look a heck of a lot different. I think back to, I managed to swap colleges within a 7-day period. I went through a horrific experience at the first college I enrolled at. Within 7 days, I withdrew from that first college. And instead of just like laying on my ass and being like, I'm doing nothing, I just went through a horrific experience. Nope, I got back up, pulled my bootstraps up, enrolled in another college and made that transfer within 7 days. I also went through a very difficult divorce. If you were following me at that time, at this point that was, like 8 years ago, this wasn't something I completely hid. So a lot of people were very in the know of what was happening and it was not easy, but it was necessary. And I'm very proud of pushing through that. I quit drinking cold turkey about 4.5 years ago at this point. Like many people, surviving the chaos of 2020 was a bitch. But, I add on top of that, I had a brand new baby. I switched jobs the week that the world closed down. So all of a sudden, the world closed down, brand new job, 3-month-old baby. I now have a nanny at my house full time. I also have my stepdaughter and my husband. So trying to take care of all those different logistics and all while planning a wedding, all simultaneously. Talk about let's throw everything into the fire at the exact same moment. But I made it through. We made it through. My husband, myself, my family. But through it all of those different experiences, learning that balance is possible. Even in the middle of freaking chaos, balance is possible. Because I wouldn't be here today sharing these tips and these strategies with you if it wasn't. So with that, let's dive right in. So Today's episode, like I said, is definitely going to be one where having a piece of paper or having your notes on your phone open is going to be pretty handy dandy, because this is more like a work as you go type of podcast. It's not just one where you can kind of listen and take the motivation. I mean, you totally could, but this is one that's more, work through it with me, because I'm actually going to give you tangible tips that you can implement if you're following through these steps with me. And as I'm going through these steps, please know that, I'm not just preaching. These are actually steps I practice on the regular myself. I break down these same steps in my own life, typically at least once a quarter, if not once a month, so that I kind of double check myself and make sure that I am on track with where I need to go. So step 1, on your piece of paper or on your notes, I want you to write down lines 1 through 10. In life, there are 10 different areas. So I want you to write these 10 categories, okay? 1, environment. 2, fun and leisure. 3, personal growth. 4, career and purpose. 5, spirituality and faith. 6, romantic relationships. 7, friends and family. 8, finances. 9, health and fitness. 10, emotional health. All right, so those are your 10 areas of life. And when I go back and I explain them, I want you, next to that category, rate it 1 to 10, where you feel it's falling in your life. 10 being high, 1 being low. Like 10, I am dominating this area. I'm doing so fucking good. 1 being, I kind of forgot this even existed. Not focusing on this at all. Okay. And I want you to go with your gut. If you instantly think like, 6, and then you're like, well, this, that, the other, maybe 5, maybe 8, go with your gut. Typically our guts are correct. Okay. So your environment, this is where you're spending your time. And I want you to think about, okay, where do you spend the majority of your time? Is it in your office? Are you commuting a ton? Do you drive for work and you're in your car a lot? Your house, your state that you live in, your city that you live in. Think about the spaces in your environment that are impacting you on the regular. Maybe you love your house and it's like the perfect space for you. Or maybe your car is a disaster and you're driving, 20 hours a week. Maybe the state you live in is completely draining you and exhausting you. Think about your environment, 1 to 10. Second category, second area of life, fun and leisure. And that's exactly what it sounds like. Are you having fun? Are you leaning into your hobbies? Are you doing things that bring you pure joy? Like, think like a kid. A kid rocks at fun and leisure, typically. How is your fun and leisure? Area 3, personal growth. Leaning into the areas where you need to focus to continue to improve as a human. Maybe this is like a new area of study for you. Maybe it's, parenting skills. Maybe it's, you want to learn more about current events or, thinking of the personal growth, personal development type of sections that you'll see at a bookstore or at a library. Obviously, nowadays, you don't have to go to a bookstore or a library. You can do it online, things of that sort. But how are you doing with your personal growth, continuing to challenge yourself and continuing to learn? 4, the fourth area of life, career and purpose. So this doesn't necessarily need to be like your 9 to 5, right? Some people, they have their 9 to 5, it's paying the bills, but they have another purpose that they feel is in their life, right? How do you feel your career and your purpose are ranking right now in the life you're living? 1 to 10. Fifth area, spirituality and faith. I'm willing to bet if you listen to my podcast, you are a person that believes in God. So how are you ranking where you're falling right now in your relationship with the Lord? Potentially even leaning further, like how are you doing as a member of your church or as a member of your faith community? 1 to 10. Number 6, romantic relationships. If you're married or have a, serious long-term boyfriend, girlfriend, maybe beyond that, maybe you're just perfectly content being single. Maybe not. Maybe you are single and you don't want to be. But how are you ranking in your romantic relationship area of life? 7, friends and family. So, how are your relationships with your close friends? How are your relationships with your family members? Do you want them better? Do you want to actually spend less time on them? Are you overdoing it? Are you underdoing it? Is it just right? Sounded like Goldilocks right there. Number 8, your 8th area of life is your finances. So how's the bank accounts looking? How are your investments? How are your retirement pieces? How are your accounts for your kids doing? How are overall finances 1 to 10? The 9th area is your health and fitness. So those are the logistics, like, your weight, how you're eating, your exercise, those more tangible health and fitness types of things. And then the final area of life is your emotional health. So this goes beyond just, hey, can you do a push-up and eat salads? This is, how is your mental and emotional health? How is your heart? How is your brain? Do you need counseling? Do you need a pastor to sit with? Are you doing really well? You're spending a lot of time taking care of yourself, giving yourself the space you need. 1 to 10, where is your emotional health? All right. So now you should have 10 numbers, 1 to 10, right? And I want you to look at those. The goal is not to have them, let me rephrase that. If you're looking at them and you're like, oh, my Lana, Jenna, I have a couple 1s, I have some 10s, I have an 8, I have a 6, I have a 4. That's normal, right? More than likely, you're not going to have them be all the same number. But ideally, we do want them as even as we possibly can. Because that is what is going to bring us that sense of peace, that sense of balance. Envision, so if you have like a 2, a 1, a 7, a 8, a 4, right, all over the board, imagine that old school toy, the Bumble Ball, right? I remember my sister had one when we were really little. And you'd turn this ball on and had like spikes all over, and it would bounce all over the floor in like funky little patterns, and because it was uneven. And that is what happens when our lives are uneven like that. That is why striving for a true even balance, even if that means, all of them are at a 6, and then you slowly work on them and bump them to a 7, and so on and so forth. That is the ideal goal. I'll be transparent. Will it ever happen? Probably not. You will typically have a range. But if you can get them closer, like some 6s, some 7s, some 8s, a closer range versus a 1 to a 10 range, you are going to feel more peace in your heart and in your brain. So, all right, Jenna. Well, you have now helped me create this list of 10 numbers, and they're nowhere near a close range. What the hell am I supposed to do about it, right? Because the goal isn't just to tell you, well, you failed, right? No. All right, what are we going to do now that we've seen these numbers? How can we begin to work on it? So it is important to look at the different areas then and start to create goals that match the different areas, right? And how we do that. So I want you to look at your area of 10, or your 10 areas, right? So your environment, your health and fitness, your emotional health, your spirituality. Look at those 10 areas. And you are now going to break them down into 4 different categories. So I want you to look at them and think, okay, This area right here is a no-brainer to me. I'm just really freaking good at it. More than likely, they're going to have scores like 8 to 10. So you immediately looked at it and it's like, oh, this is an 8, this is a 9, this is a 10. You're really good at it naturally, and you don't even need to think about it, right? For me, this is typically like my health and fitness. I exercise consistently, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's like brushing my teeth. So for me, my health and fitness typically is a no-brainer area. So if you have areas that fit that category, put an asterisk next to it. So for me, I would put an asterisk next to my health and fitness. Go down your list. If you need to, pause me for a minute. Go down your list and put an asterisk next to any of those no-brainer areas. All right. The second thing. Now you're going to go down your list. In any area that, all right, I'm pretty good at this, but holy shit, it takes a ton of time and a ton of effort. Okay? So, like for me, I'm trying to think. For me, one of mine that, especially in the beginning that, when I was working on it, to get it in a better place, I got decently good at it though, was my finances. But I spent hours, like, budgeting and looking at numbers and figuring things out. So those strengths that, okay, cool, I'm doing pretty good at this, but holy crap, the time and the effort is really high. Put a T next to any area that fits that mold. So down that list of 10, any strength that is really time consuming, put a T. And again, you can pause if you need to, if you need a little bit longer. Now the third thing, you're going to go down the list and you are going to identify things that you're really not good at. It's not a strength, and you're okay with that, right? So going down that list, all right, which ones am I really not good at? For me, for example, this one would probably be like, honestly, my environment. There's not much I can do about it. I'm thinking like physically right now, my space, like our house. Like, yeah, there's some remodeling that we could do, to kind of up things and make it, feel a little bit more polished and cooler vibe. But I'm okay that we're not doing that, right? So anything like that for you, put an X next to that category. And then the final one, now you're going to go down that list now a fourth and final. Any area that is a strength, that is not a strength, but you want to improve it. Put an exclamation point. So, for example, for me, this would be, my fun and leisure. I know it's important to do that. I know it's important to take vacations and girl time and, going to the spa once in a while and enjoying my hobbies, but I'm not really good at it because I don't like to give time to that stuff because I look at, we could go to this, that, the other instead. But I know it's important. So that deserves in my life an exclamation point. So now you will have your list, and every area should have either an asterisk, a T, an X, or an exclamation. Some might even have more than one, but typically they all just will have one. Okay? So now that you've gotten on your list, you've said, okay, this is, a strength of mine. I don't even really need to think about it, or, this is something I really am not good at, but I know I need to be. All right. Now, what do I do about this, Jenna? How can I take it from beyond a simple symbol to actually starting to improve the balance in life? So for today, we're just going to, for time's sake, kind of run through just a couple rough examples. I want you to create 1 or 2 goals. But these goals are going to help you really start to take some steps forward in better balance and staying in line with your priorities. So depending on what symbol you put next to it, asterisk, a T, an X, or an exclamation, there's a couple different things that you could do. But today we're just going to focus on kind of the low-hanging fruit. Okay? So the key is setting a goal, like I said, that's in line with your priorities, but also is realistic and doable. Because if you set goals that aren't necessarily quote unquote doable, realistic, you're almost setting yourself up for failure and breaking down your confidence before you even start. If you start by setting lower hanging fruit goals, you're going to start to build more and more confidence every time you accomplish one of those goals. And it'll help you as your confidence grows, that as you're reaching for the higher up fruit, right, which is typically a little bit more challenging goals, you'll have more confidence as you tackle them. And having that more confident mindset is actually helpful and has been proven that, hey, when somebody's more confident, they're more likely to attack a more challenging goal and succeed. Okay? So as we dive into goals here, I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but when I goal set with a client, the format that I typically follow is the SMART goal formula. And I think SMART goals are definitely becoming more and more common. A lot of places of business use them. A lot of schools are even starting to use them. So, every once in a while I'll still come across some people that are like, oh, I have no idea what that means. But I actually am coming across a lot more people that are like, oh yeah, I've had to use SMART goals at work before. Okay. But just a quick refresher for those of you that know, and a quick educational breakdown for those of you that don't know. A SMART goal, so SMART is actually an acronym. So it stands for a goal that is specific, measurable, action-based, realistic, and timelined. What the hell does that mean, Jenna? Okay. So again, if you have a piece of paper or your notes open, I encourage jot this down. But the S, so your specific goal, it needs to be frickin' detailed. The more detail in your goal, the better. You almost want to envision that the specifics are like your roadmap to success, right? The M, measurable, meaning you need to have the goal, you need to have a quantity that you have to hit, a specific number, a specific, I know when I achieve this type of deal. Like on Thursday, I'm going to do this, or, I am going to do this 4 times, something of that sort. Having actual numbers in the goal will let you know when you achieved it versus, I'm going to do more, I'm going to do less of. It's kind of vague. It's gray. You don't know exactly if you hit it. The A, action-based. You actually have to do something, okay? It can't be, oh, I'm going to try harder. Okay, what are you doing? What is the action you are going to physically be doing? And reminder, action can still be, something like I'm going to read this, or I'm going to study this for a half an hour. I'm going to research this for a day. It can still be more on the I guess not quote unquote action, like you're moving your body, but you're still doing something. The R, realistic. So whenever I have somebody set goals, I always will ask them after they, have followed the whole SMART goal formula. It's a very specific goal. It's got the numbers in it. It's, action based. I will ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you are going to achieve that goal? And if they say anything less than a 9, I tell them, okay, scale it back. Meaning make it a little bit smaller, a little bit more bite-sized. Because we need to remember baby steps still help us succeed. Even if that means 10 baby step goals to achieve the full out goal. But every time you achieve a baby step goal, again, it's helping you with that confidence piece, right? So remember, it needs to be realistic. And finally, the T. So SMART, the T, timelined. You need a deadline. Don't just say, I'm going to eat, 7 servings of vegetables. Okay, by when? You need to have a timeline. Typically, I always suggest roughly a week. You don't want to go too far out because our attention spans don't hold up. It's just the world we live in today. So typically you want to keep your goal at, a week or under. All right. So now that you have, thought about the different 10 areas of life, we've talked a little bit about a SMART goal and setting yourself up for success. Once we do set up a goal, it is key to think about, what are my top priorities in life? It is important to always keep the top priorities in the back of your mind and use those as kind of a weight to kind of weigh out your pros and cons of all your decisions in life. Because if you're making decisions and you're setting goals and you're not keeping your top priorities in mind, you can very easily fuck up your balance without even really thinking about it. So for example, so me personally, one of my top priorities in life are my girls, right? If I were to set, because I said, right, one of my areas where I'm not very good is fun and leisure. If I were to set a goal of I'm going to take 4 vacations by myself in a year, that's really not keeping, for me anyway, it's not keeping my priority of my girls in mind. So it's important as we're starting to shift here into the actual goal setting, make sure you're keeping your priorities in line and giving yourself the permission to say, hey, I might need to postpone this one until a later season. Maybe for me, when my girls are older, taking 4 vacations a year is going to be key. It's going to be awesome. It's going to go well. But right now, it wouldn't work. Okay? All right. So now it is time to brainstorm a little bit and actually get into setting some goals so that when you leave this podcast in a couple minutes, you feel accomplished. You have an action step that you can take to actually achieve a little better balance in your personal life. All right. So low-hanging fruit. Typically, the best way to do this is to look at either the T's or the exclamation points on your list. Okay? So let's say you're going to look at a T, one that you're really freaking good at, but it is sucking up your time. Okay? Yes, I'm good at it. It's like a 10 or a 9, but the amount of time, it's just mind-boggling. It's not even smart. So what you want to do now is think about, okay, I need to scale this back a little bit because I'm over allocating resources. I'm over allocating my time where I could pour that into some other areas that may need a little bit of that time. Maybe I'll drop this one from a 9 to an 8 and bump up another area that's at a 2 to a 4, right? So, for example, for me, let's say right now my environment is a 7. It's really clean. It's organized. Like I said, we could dial it in a little bit by, refurbishing the bathroom, something of that sort. But for the most part, my environment is roughly a 7. But a priority for me, family and friends, is actually at a 5. Even though my family and friends mean a lot to me. A lot. But it's not super high because I over allocate my time to keeping my house clean. And this was true story. Totally true story. So a goal that I created for myself about a year ago was I'm going to vacuum my house 2 times a week instead of 3 times. And I dove into it that next week. So it was timeline because I told myself next week. It was measurable because I gave myself the specifics of 2 times instead of 3. Action-based, right? I'm going to vacuum. Very specific. And for me, it helped me scale back on one that was taking a lot of time. Granted, vacuuming only takes, 20 minutes. But that's 20 minutes I could have been playing Legos or, something with Mac or having a conversation, quick catching up with a girlfriend. Something of that sort. So sometimes it means pulling back some resources that you allocated to a really strong strength and leaning into an area that, shit, I know I need more attention here. All right, let's say you don't want to look at one of your T's. You want to look at one of your exclamation points. One that, okay, I'm not very good at this one, and I know I need to be. All right, so you want to lean into one of those areas to start improving it because you know it's important. You know it craves your attention, and for some reason, you're just not making it happen. So this example was one that I actually came up with about a year ago. And for me, my romantic relationship, so my marriage, was at a 5. But I knew it was a top priority for me. You know, as I've said before, for me, in my mind, marriage is like the foundation of the whole family. If our marriage isn't doing well, often the family is not doing well. So I said, and for me, at this point, we were struggling to even find date night options because it was like we were going out to dinner and going out to dinner and going out to dinner and going out to dinner. And I love going out to dinner, but even that sometimes gets boring, right? So a goal that I set for myself last year was I will spend 1 hour this week researching date night ideas. It was still specific, it was measurable, it was action-based, and it was realistic. And it aligned with my priorities because my husband is obviously a top-notch priority for me in my life. So I encourage you, pause me right now. Pause me. Look at your list. What's a T? What's an exclamation point? That you can set a goal to help you find some better balance. I also encourage, if you have a friend or maybe a family member that you're like, dude, this strategy, it's not rocket science by any means, but it was helpful. Share this with them. Either, sit them down, you teach them quick, or send them the podcast. Make your life easy, right? But I can tell you, these are the steps that I have been following since, I believe, 2016. Yeah, 2016 is when I started following these steps. Is my life perfect? No. I have still missed quite a few goals that I've set for myself, but I can guarantee you I've hit way more goals than I would have if I would not have been following a process like this to help myself keep my life in better check and better balance while focusing on areas that still are top-notch priorities for me and my heart. All right, so I want to congratulate you first off. If you actually followed along, you had your piece of paper, you had your notes out, and you were following those steps, I want to congratulate you because setting goals is not easy. A lot of people don't do it because it's not easy, right? But a lot of people also do not accomplish things because they do not follow some type of goal setting in their life. And why I had you write it all down today was because you are 45% more likely to achieve a goal if you're writing it down in some way, shape, or form. I'm old school. I like, actually touching the pen or the pencil to the paper, but I do understand in today's time, a lot of people just like doing it on their phone, and that's cool too. It still is going to help you succeed at a higher rate if you're writing it down versus letting it float around in your brain along with, your grocery list and your carpool schedule and what to-dos you have to do for work. Write it down. All right. If this was something that you're like, dude, that was so helpful. Like I said, it's not rocket science. I didn't help you, find world peace or anything of that sort. But sometimes when you just find a little more peace in your heart, it can feel like we solved all the world's problems, at least for that moment. If this is something that you're like, I frickin' love this. If you have not yet looked at the Grit and Grace Rambling Collective, I highly encourage you do. It is a monthly subscription, it's $10 a month. You get put into a private group where I am coaching on the daily in there. There's other women supporting you and rooting you on. But it is a great space to be at if you're like, I know I want better. I know I want more. I know I want better, balance. I want to achieve my health goals. I just want my life to shift a little bit and start to trend a little more in the positive direction. That is a space you need to get yourself into. So make sure, check the show notes. I'll put a link so you can, read all about it. If you have questions, you can reach out. But I would love to see you in there, especially if you're the type that's like, this is my jam. I know I want to improve. I just don't know the exact how-tos. And this was helpful information for you today. All right. So I am super glad that you were here today. I want you to remember, you deserve to live a life where you're feeling more balanced and more peace. It's fucking hard work. There is no denying that. But that doesn't mean it's not possible. So, I don't want you to wait until tomorrow to start on the action step you gave yourself today. Start today. Let's start making headway immediately so you can start working on that inner confidence, knowing, hey, I can achieve better balance and more peace in my heart. If you are ready to take some goals to that next level, I do encourage checking out the Grit and Grace Rambling Collective program. Together, whether it's through this podcast or through the collective, I'm excited to help you create a life that aligns with the values and the priorities that matter. So, thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast and rate and review. And I wish you the best on your journey towards finding that better balance. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ramblings of an Addict with Jenna Dix. Remember, if you are battling an addiction, reach out for help and support. There are many resources available to assist in your journey towards recovery. Surround yourself with a supportive community and never give up on the path towards a healthier and happier life. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and joining me on this journey. As you heard, I'm always rambling. But seriously, thank you for your support and make sure to subscribe and follow my channel. I can't wait to share more with you on the next episode. Until then, keep on rambling. If you have found this podcast helpful and want to dive deeper into personal growth and self-improvement, be sure to head over to my website, jennadix.com. You'll find a wealth of resources there. There is a little less drugs, sex, and rock and roll these days, but whether you're interested in getting healthy, information on momming or parenting, or politics, jennadix.com has something for everyone. So, what are you waiting for? Head to jennadix.com today and start your journey towards personal growth and self-awareness. See you there.